I hear what you're saying. We have no proof that James Holmes is mentally incapacitated in any way. Let's kind of stay focused on this topic. There are 270 million guns in the U.S. After the shootings in Aurora, gun permit request went up 41% over the weekend. Why? That seems crazy to me.
Well, it's a natural reaction that people want to be safe. People want to feel safe. And so some people will say, well, we need more gun control. But will that help? Would it help to ban large capacity magazines? Would it help to ban semi-automatic rifles or some of the weapons that Holmes used? Probably not. But would it help for an individual to be armed, to be able to protect themselves, to protect their loved ones, to protect those around them who might not even like guns? You know, the one thing that has been shown to stop shootings before they turn into mass shootings is the presence of an armed victim.
Okay, I still think you're talking about a very dangerous scenario here, because statistics show if you have a gun and you don't know how to operate it, the person who does know how to operate it is going to take it away from you and cause more damage.
I want to weigh in on a couple things here, because you talked about James Holmes not showing up on the NICS background check, and you're right, which is why it should be stricter. And here's a couple of reasons why it's not stricter. I think there's a general stigma around mental health, mental illness. My mom's a counselor, so I'm intimately familiar.
Sure.
But our health insurance doesn't even cover sufficient preventive services around mental illness and mental health. So we're not even identifying all of the folks who could use help and who shouldn't be buying guns. One. Two, around social capital, a lot of our data work shows that there's a high correlation, strong correlation between social capital and levels of violence. So more violent states, more violent cities have very low social capital. Perception of criminality is quite high. People don't trust their neighbors.
Sure.
So Holmes is a good example of this. Isolationist, kept away from society, didn't talk to people. We have to work at increasing our social capital so that we can increase levels of peace. In terms of, you know, arming people so they can defend themselves in the event of an Aurora, Columbine, Virginia Tech, or even, you know, Gabby Giffords, when she was shot, people were armed then and didn't shoot back. Thankfully, they tackled the shooter, but they weren't able in time to shoot back. So I think there's some flaws in that specific argument.
Well, why is this country, especially the politicians, why are they so timid around the gun lobby? They're almost terrified of the NRA.
Can I address that?
Sure.
Right. So every year, NRA and its members give several $1 million to Congress. That's why Congress is pretty quiet, save for Senator Lautenberg, maybe Congressman Moran, Congressman Honda. Pretty quiet on the treaties that you mentioned, the assault weapon ban,
Sure.
the high-capacity magazine ban. We don't have those laws in place. It expired in 2004. We need to renew it. Senator Reid, very quiet on these issues. Why? NRA pressure. What they don't realize is that there's a bigger money issue at stake. For each homicide, we had 12 in Aurora. There's according not to me, but the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the government, $1.3 million is paid by taxpayers for each homicide. That's for medical costs, court costs, and police costs.
And then, of course, the trauma of going through an event like this, you're going to have to take care of a lot of people perhaps the rest of their lives.
Right.
Your thoughts on this?
But the one thing that's missing there is you can have the number of people injured, you can have the number of people killed. There's no number of people saved, of lives saved, and it's estimated that between 600,000 and 2 million times a year, law-abiding citizens use guns successfully in self-defense. 1 week before the Aurora shooting, there was a 71-year-old man in Florida.
I saw that, in Ocala, Florida, where he chased the two gunmen out. But where I came from, there's a saying, that dog won't hunt. Come on, really, do you think somebody is going to, by carrying a weapon, is going to be able to stop something like this? Look at the way Holmes was armed. Look at the way he protected himself. This was somebody who was going to cause as much punishment and pain as he could in a short period of time, and with the kind of body armor he had on, the gas mask, the planning, the work he went through to booby trap his own house, I refuse to believe that somebody could have pulled out some kind of weapon in a dark movie theater and taken him out.
The body armor is not quite as relevant. It's not impervious. You know, you can dress up in the exact body armor that he had and take a shot from a .45, and you know that you might not kill you,
right.
but it would knock you down. So that's number one. Number two, he was standing in front of essentially an audience of people, and presumably there were some people there who could have had a shot at taking down the attacker. But instead, the only option people had, and that was a gun-free zone,
sure,
the only option people had was to cower and run and duck.
Well, there's, I'm sure, a lot of people across the world thinking it's a shame that's what our society has come to. But let's move on to the politics of all this. Where do we go from here? When is somebody going to really address gun laws? So Obama administration has tried since 2008 to tell people who support guns, we're not going to take your weapons away. But people who support your cause don't believe him. Why is that?
Well, to address something Michael mentioned about the gun lobby. One thing the gun lobby does not do, other than as individuals, is vote. And so one problem that President Obama has, who supports broad restrictions on gun ownership, is that the majority of the American people just don't agree with that position. We do want to address the gun laws, but what a lot of gun owners
Tiptoe
are saying
in there, or what's the best way?
We want to repeal laws that restrict people from carrying guns in churches, say, that restrict people from carrying guns in parks.
Michael, I can see you ready to jump in here. What's your thought on this?
Well, a couple things. One, I doubt we'll ever be able to kind of rescind American freedoms. American freedoms are first and foremost in any member of Congress's mind, and certainly in the membership of the NRA. We won't be able to do that, but we will be able to push forward, hopefully, on some general gun safety. We should have limits on assault rifles, how many you can purchase. We should have limits on handguns per month so we can prevent trafficking. I think we can move forward on some general safety measures. I don't want to live in a society where everyone is packing because everyone is concerned that someone might pull out a gun in Starbucks or in any kind of public space, and so we have to defend ourselves. That's not social capital. That's the erosion of social capital. That's not the America I want to live in. So I think there are some general safety measures that we can pursue and should pursue while still respecting
Around
American
the world,
freedoms.
people think we're the Wild West. They think back to Wild Bill Hickok, Deadwood.
But it's not true. And the argument that Michael just put forth, part of that argument of people at Starbucks cutting in line and pulling out guns, shooting each other, it doesn't happen. We've had time after time, state after state, in 49 of the 50 states of this country, it's legal to some extent or other to carry concealed.
Because the gun lobby is so powerful.
And we have not seen those types of situations. It just doesn't happen.
Why we've seen the guns go up to 300 million. It used to be at 200 million. Just 15 years that grew to 300 million.
And if you're over 50 years of age, the chances of owning a gun, 1 in 3. If you're under than that, it's then it's significantly less. It's 1 in 5. So, gentlemen, we could talk about this all day. I really want to thank you both for coming in. Michael Shank, John Velleco.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I greatly appreciate your time and your insight.